Well, now what am I going to do with all these bases? I have a great idea that's going to cost you nothing. Let's do it. Hey, welcome back to the Crafting Brothers. A few weeks ago I did a video on how to use and convert Mage Knight miniatures for your D&D game. If you haven't seen that video, I'll put a link in the description below. But what I ended up with was a whole bunch of these bases that I didn't know what to do with. And as I was sitting there and stacking them up, I thought, wow, they would make amazing pillars. And so I built a pillar, but I didn't stop there. Let me show you what I did. The first thing I needed to do is clean them up a bit, and my X-Acto set seemed like the perfect tool. I used E6000 here. I think it bonds best to this type of plastic. The most important thing to remember here is to line up the grooves to simulate alternating stones. Now here they are, all dried up and ready to go. They look great, but one thing I didn't realize was that because they are Mage Knights, you can actually click them now. It turned out to be a good opportunity to adjust the bricks that had moved from before, but now moving forward they will move, and that is not good. I was gonna paint them gray anyway, so I mixed up the paint with a bunch of Mod Podge and gave them a really heavy paint job in order to seal in all the cracks that might otherwise move. While I was letting that massive gloopy paint job dry, I grabbed some dollar store foam and cut out some pieces that I could use for the tops. I used a nail file to round out the edges a bit to make this look like a stone slab. I based them in black, put on a little texture using tinfoil, and followed that up with gray paint to match the pillar. Here they are all painted up with the tops. I think they look pretty good so far. Now it was an easy process to hot glue the tops, unless you were like me and you don't concentrate on what you're doing. I glued one of them upside down. I immediately took it off and tried to peel off the glue, and of course that didn't work, obviously. So I decided to make it easy and just texture the other side and reheat the hot glue that was already on the top. Crisis averted. The next step was just to do a dry brush of granite gray along the sides, and I wanted to make sure to keep as much of the black lines between the stones, and I also paid attention to the top as well. Now, I could have stopped here and just called it a day and dropped them right on the table. But as I was looking at them, I wasn't really happy with the sloppiness of the paint job, and I thought of a few more ideas that could make them better. I used my crafter's pick glue for this, as it is nice and thick and won't drip through the cracks. I carefully made a trail of glue that I thought would look natural running down the side of the pillars, and then flocked it with Woodland Scenic's Fine Turf. The idea is that moss will be growing on the sunny side of the pillar. I wanted to really get it in the cracks, so I just grabbed little pinches of the flocking, and I stuck it on there and pushed and really got it in there, and I think it looks great when it's all dried up. Now I also paid attention to the tops as well, because I wanted it to look like the moss was just growing onto the top of the pillar. For my next idea, I decided to make a whole new pillar, but this time I glued the part of the base that allows them to spin. Much easier. And when I painted them, I can now see the individual stones without the gloppy paint job. For this one, I used kind of a heavy dry brush. What I did is just loaded up the paint onto the brush, wiped it off a little on the sides of my bowl, and I'm just doing kind of a heavy dry brush. I love seeing those black lines just pop out in between the stones. It looks great. And I followed it up with just a nice little granite gray dry brush. And I think you'll see in comparison, these pillars look so much better than the originals. Now, for the next one, I wanted to make a limestone pillar, so I painted a bunch of these bases white and let them dry sideways to keep the pillars even. I even rolled them around a little bit every once in a while just to make sure they stayed the same. So now I gave it a second coat of white paint, and then I almost fell into the pool. Wow. It was strange because I think my paint might have been dried out. You can see these little bits of paint flying around. I gave everything a dark brown wash and dabbed off the excesses with a paper towel. It needed a few coats to get it where I wanted it, and now you can see the little granules that were coming out of the white spray paint can. It actually gave it a really nice texture. It was kind of a happy mishap. I gave everything a few different coats of different parts of the pillar. The idea is to get the brown in the cracks and some of the texture just to let that pop out. You can see the side that doesn't have the texture actually takes a little more dabbing and washes to kind of give it that initial brown look. Now the next step is a combination of brown, yellow, and a bunch of white. I was going for kind of a salmon color, which is the next phase to this limestone rock. Now, just as before, I did a heavy dry brush, again attempting to keep some of the original brown color in the cracks. I did have to reapply another brown wash, but this time I focused on the spots that needed it most. And I just dabbed it right into the little tiny cracks and to the spots that I thought could use some more brown. I think it looks great so far, although I did need a little light dry brushing of pure white just to emphasize the stones on top, and I love the way this came out. It's exactly what I was going for. Now I've had these mossy packages sitting around from Walmart for a while, so I wanted to use them to create vines growing around the pillars. I glued them on with crafter's pick glue in ways that I thought would look like they were growing through the cracks and around. It was tricky getting all the little bits in, but once I got into a groove, I think it came out really cool. And I also added some flocking right at the end just to cover up the glue spots. Here they are in all of their glory. I know, shameless plug on using my other terrain. But which one do you guys like best? I'd like to know. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe and all that cool stuff, and share with your friends. We're really trying to grow the channel. And I will see you in a week or two with a brand new video of something cool. See you next time.